What's up guys, Mike here, and we're gonna keep the intro short because the topic of today's video is pretty simple. Today, we're just looking at 4 recent NBA superstars who, for whatever reason, became absolutely terrible very fast. So, that about covers it. Let's just get started with number 4, Danny Granger. When Danny Granger was just 25 years old, he put up an absolutely monster season. As in 2009, Granger averaged 25.8 points, 5.1 rebounds, 2.7 assists, and made 2.7 threes a game, while also becoming a first-time All-Star and the league's most improved player. To put that season into a historic context, only 12 players in NBA history have ever averaged at least 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 threes a game for an entire year. And that list includes players like Kobe, Steph, KD, James Harden, and Tracy McGrady. So I think you get the point here. When he was just 25 years old, Danny Granger was very good. In fact, in a lot of ways, he was just a little before his time, as the recent three-point explosion in the NBA would have made Granger even more deadly, as in his prime he was clearly a knockdown shooter from deep, but simply did not take as many threes as he would in today's game. With that said though, in his own period, again, Granger was great, and just looking at his early career progression, it seems like he should have gotten even better, because in his first 4 seasons in the NBA, Danny drastically improved each year, going from averaging 7.5 points in his rookie year to 13.9 in year 2 to 19.6 in year 3, and then finally 25.8 in year 4 at the age of 25. To me, those look like the numbers of a man who is about to enter his prime and become one of the best scorers in the entire NBA. Instead, just 4 years later at the age of 29, Granger played in just 5 games and averaged just 5.4 points per game in those games. From there, he would never again average over 9 points a game and would retire just 2 years later at the young age of 31. And unfortunately, the reason for this fall off was actually pretty simple. To put it simply, Danny's knees just betrayed him. They slept with his wife. No. Again, in 2013, Granger played in only 5 games due to a left knee injury that he never fully recovered from, which is a major shame because remember, the Indiana Pacers lost to the Heat in the 2013 Eastern Conference Finals in 7 games without Granger, and then the next year they also lost to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. If Danny Granger was fully healthy and had developed into the star that he once seemed destined to be, the Pacers could very well have knocked off the Heat and brought home an NBA championship. But because of these injuries, that didn't happen. I do want to say though, I admire Granger's attitude throughout his injury-plagued years, as even though his body was failing him on the court, off the court he was always the ultimate teammate, as Paul George has even gone as far as to say that Danny Granger was his mentor as a young player, and that PG still calls Danny from time to time to ask for advice. Number 3, Ben Gordon. Of any player on this list, the fall of Ben Gordon may have been the most dramatic, as in his time with the Bulls, Gordon established himself as one of the better perimeter scorers in the league and was a player who, when he was hot, was simply unguardable. In his last year with Chicago, Ben was just 25 and averaged 20.7 points per game, and in a memorable first-round series with the Boston Celtics, proved to be a true go-to scorer for the Bulls, as in Game 2 he dropped 42 points, and in the series in general connected on several clutch shots while leading a young Bulls team to an almost huge upset over the Boston Celtics before Chicago lost in 7 games. Still though, the future seemed very bright for Ben Gordon, and the Pistons certainly believed he was on the brink of becoming an all-star, as Detroit signed him to a 5-year, $58 million contract, which was huge at the time. Unfortunately for the Pistons though, it appears that Ben Gordon really just wanted to get paid, and then once he did, he kind of stopped caring about basketball. At least that's what it seems like, because when asked about what was happening at the time, Gordon said that he was confused with the Pistons' style of play and the inconsistent minutes he was getting. But in my opinion, something else had to be in play here, as Ben went from averaging over 20 points per game in 2009 to just 13.8 in 2010 for a 27-win Detroit Pistons Pistons team at just 26 years old. And to make matters even worse, those 13.8 points per game at the age of just 26 were the most he'd ever averaged in a season again. And by the age of 31, he was out of the NBA completely. Going even further here, to make matters even more worse, since leaving the NBA, Gordon has been in a lot of trouble. As in June of 2017, Ben was arrested for pulling the fire alarms at his Los Angeles apartment building. Then 4 months later, he was placed in a psychiatric hospital after getting in an argument with a female. And then in November, he was again arrested for punching the manager of his apartment and pulling a knife on him, then robbing him of his security deposit. So unfortunately, it just seems like Ben Gordon has some mental health problems that he may have had in the NBA and certainly seems to have now. So I'll just end this by saying that if that is true, I hope that he gets the help that he needs, because mental health problems are just no joke. Number 2, Amare Stoudemire. Playing for the Phoenix Suns, Amare Stoudemire quickly established himself as one of the most dominant big men in the league within the revolutionary 7 seconds or less offense. In just his 3rd season at the age of 22, Amare was already a member of the All-NBA 2nd team while averaging 26 points and 9 rebounds a game with a very impressive 26.6 PER. From there, he would continue to be a staple for the Steve Nash era in Phoenix and helped the Suns reach the Western Conference Finals 3 times while also being individually named to the All-Star team 5 times. In his prime, there were games that Amare was simply unstoppable, as he was one of the most athletic big men in the league who also just happened to have great touch around the basket and a knockdown mid-range jumper. Then came the summer of 2010, and as a free agent, Amare decided to leave Phoenix for New York and was instantly seen as a potential savior for the Knicks. And in his first season playing in the Garden, Amare did not disappoint, as he averaged an awesome 25.3 points and helped drag the Knicks to the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. Immediately, he was seen as an absolute hero in New York. But that's when the problems began to take place, as due to knee injuries during his time in Phoenix, insurance companies would not insure the $100 million contract that the Knicks gave Amare, which was a pretty huge red flag and an incredibly risky move. This move would prove to not pay off at all, as the next year, Amare's points per game already dropped from over 25 to just 17.5, and he played in just 47 games. The year after that, he was down to playing in just 29 games in the regular season and was averaging just 14.2 points. A massive drop-off for a 30-year-old who was just recently considered one of the game's best players. And as we all know, from there, Amare's injuries would drastically hurt him on the court, and eventually, his contract with the Knicks was seen by some as the worst contract in all of basketball, which really is a shame, because I would love to see what Melo and Amare could have accomplished together if given the chance. But the NBA is a cruel place, and injuries can and will end careers fast. And number 1, Deron Williams. In last year's NBA Finals, it was clear that one player absolutely did not belong on the court, as in 5 games, Deron Williams may have put together one of the worst Finals performances of all time. Averaging 12 minutes a game, Deron put up 1 point and 1 assist a night while shooting a horrendous 13% from the field, which is why it should come as no surprise that Deron Williams is currently not playing in the NBA. But taking a step back away from that horrible Finals appearance, the fact that D-Will is not currently on any NBA team is actually kind of insane, because remember, when Deron Williams was in his prime, there was legitimate conversations taking place as to who was better, Deron Williams or Chris Paul. As in his time in Utah, Deron became a lethal threat from everywhere on the court and seemed like the type of player you can build a franchise around. So you might expect expect that a rivalry between Chris Paul and Deron Williams would have taken place throughout most of their careers, especially because Chris Paul is just 1 year younger than Deron Williams. But fast forward to now, where CP3 is putting up all-star type numbers for the #1 team in the NBA, and Deron Williams seems like he has no chance to return to the NBA, so we have to ask ourselves this question: what happened? Why did a 3-time All-Star at the age of 27, who averaged 21 points and 8.7 assists per game in 2012, just completely fall off by the age of 29, where in that season his numbers plummeted to 14.3 points and 6.1 assists a night? Well, luckily for us, it seems that Paul Pierce has the answer to the downfall of Deron Williams. As in an article by ESPN, Pierce revealed that he did not enjoy his time in Brooklyn at all, and said it was just the guys' attitudes there. It wasn't like we were surrounded by a bunch of young guys. They were vets who didn't want to play and didn't want to practice. I was looking around saying, what's this? And when asked specifically about Deron Williams, Pierce replied, before I got there, I looked at Deron as an MVP candidate, but I felt once we got there, that's not what he wanted to be. He just didn't want that. So at the end of the day here, it just seems like Deron Williams doesn't really love basketball the way someone like Chris Paul or Kobe Bryant does. Some people are born with that gene that makes them work harder than everyone around them until they become the best player they could possibly be. And just based on everything we've seen, Deron Williams does not have that gene. And thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe for videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm telling you, if you love NBA basketball, you're not going to want to miss a video, so subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. You are awesome. We all know it. And as always, have an awesome day. And cue that music.